is a real skill. It requires discipline, it requires talent, it requires drive, motivation, it requires application, all those things that we think about in other jobs, the same in sales. So for me, it's always made sense to have someone who's really good at those things doing sales and then leaving other people to do what they're really good at. I think madness lies if you get people to do other things they're not great at as bits and add-ons to their own job.
Morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone and where you're joining us from in the world. My name is Jamesy Marshall. Jamesy Marshall? Let's try that one again.
Jamesy Marshall. Hi, Jamesy.
Jamesy Marshall. You know what it is, Lucy. It's not the worst thing I've ever been called. So my name is James Marshall, and this is Lucy Cohen. But you knew that already. Thank you so much for joining us. And at least I've got a slight blunder out the way to start off with. But Lucy, how are you getting on?
I'm good, thank you, Jamesy. I'm really good.
Good. I've now taken the name of Jamesy forevermore, haven't I?
Forever. That is what I'm going to call you for the rest of your life.
Well, this is going to be really tough. Anyway, so we are on time. We've got people flooding in. Let us know in the comment section. Let us know. Drop a message during the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from in the UK. Internationally, we are a represent a global business. So we might have a few people joining us from an international perspective. Starting off, we're here to discuss how to get away with sales with Lucy Cohen.
Yes.
Really, really important topic. And Lucy, I think, thank you so much for the kind words that you said from a social media aspect. Accountants are not here to conjure sales out of thin air. And today we're going to be discussing you, the background with Mazuma, the practical application of what you've done since 2006 in co-founding Mazuma, and actually the journey that you've been through here so far. So for me, I've known you for quite some time. I think fair to say, from an industry-wide perspective, a lot of people are going to know who you are. For those who maybe don't as much detail as they should do, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit more about Mazuma.
Sure. So I founded Mazuma with my business partner and best friend, Sophie, in 2006 when we were mere babes. So over 17 years ago now. And we were the first ever subscription model in accountancy. We were always very clear that we wanted to build a brand, that we didn't want myself and Sophie to be the people doing all the doing. It's why we picked the name Mazuma, why we didn't go like something that was named after us. It's why we always had a very strong brand proposition. And it was all about, we make our money, we scale when we have replicable processes, income, everything's doing the same thing over and over again. So monthly income coming in over and over and over again, which at the time in 2006 wasn't really done in accountancy like that. It's about streamlining, efficiency, moving from point A to point B in as few clicks as possible. And that's taken us down the road of scale. It's taken us down the road of building our own software. And it's all for that thing. But I think one of the things which is unusual about us compared to a lot of firms is that we very quickly, I suppose, in the journey, recognize that it shouldn't be Sophie and myself doing sales. And it also shouldn't be accountants who work for me doing sales, because that's not their job. I think that sales often gets because there isn't necessarily like a direct qualification in sales. Like I haven't got a whatever diploma in sales, or I haven't got my chartered sales exams, or the way that we think of it for other technical roles. It sometimes gets a bad rap as a non-skilled job, and it's just not true. Sales is a real skill. It requires discipline, it requires talent, it requires drive, motivation, it requires application, all those things that we think about in other jobs, the same in sales. So for me, it's always made sense to have someone who's really good at those things doing sales and then leaving other people to do what they're really good at. I think madness lies if you get people to do other things they're not great at as bits and add-ons to their own jobs. Granted, resource, if you're growing and you're scaling, resource might not be there. So you might have to do a little bit of, it's a bit of this and a bit of that. But ultimately what you want to move towards is having the right people working to their unique abilities. And that's why we've pretty much always had some form of sales or business development in the business that isn't me.
I love that. So hold on, let's take a step back there for one hot second, right? So much to unpack there. First thing, you were talking about your co-founder of Mazuma, Sophie, and my co-founder of Represent Group, Antonetta, decided to pop up on screen, which was fantastic. I don't know if you saw Anto pop up there. You probably wanted to skirt over that. I didn't. I just wanted to highlight it because
I was
we're
just
live.
breezing, blowing past that.
Absolutely, it's brilliant. We're live. It is unscripted. Anything can happen. So absolutely perfect. And Antonetta, thank you so much for making an appearance. I think with what you're saying there, Lucy, let's go through that and unpack that in a little bit more detail, right? So starting off in that commercial growth that you've gone through, we talk about right sizing within accountancy, right sizing to a lot of people. We talk about a mix of juniors, managers, seniors, who's doing that work, how can we do that work at the most cost efficient way, what is automated via software, what requires human intervention, what's onshore, what's offshore, all of the above. Right sizing when it comes to sales is a very, very important process. So take us through a little bit around when you've built the commercial team at Mazuma, how you've ensured the right sizing has happened so it can be as cost effective as possible for that customer acquisition cost.
Yeah, it's been a journey, I'll be honest, and it's evolved over the years. So when we very first started doing this, we had somebody in as a kind of business development person. And it was when we weren't scaling at the pace that we're now scaling. The proposition was maybe a little bit more consultative than it is now. And we very firmly believed at that time that the person who was having these conversations and bringing new clients on had to have quite a lot of technical knowledge, because of course potential clients going to ask technical questions, and how are you going to answer them if you don't have the knowledge? Of course you shouldn't be answering technical questions as part of your sales pitch. That's what them engaging your services is for. So we realized that this sales cycle was taking forever. People were kind of kicking the can down the road, dragging their feet, and it's because we weren't gatekeeping well enough. So as we've grown, we then went to, right, we're going to kind of think of this, not call center style, but definitely with this an outbound approach, and see what we can do at volume. And the first year of that was rough, because no one else really does it, and there was no benchmark for it. There was no, I didn't have an example of what good looked like. So it was really trial and error. It was, let's try this, let's do it for 3 months, let's see what the results are, then we'll tweak this, we'll try this, we'll do that for 2 months, we'll see what the results are. And it was just iterating that over the process. During that time, we learned very quickly who were the right and who were the wrong people to join us on that journey. They were crucial in it, having the right people who understand what the long-term objectives are, who weren't there making a sale for a quick buck for themselves, but were making a sale for the longevity of the company. We turned over a lot of staff in that first year, in terms of that sales cycle, because we were still trying to figure out who the right person was. Now we're at a place where we think we know far better. I won't say we've got it figured out, because there's always things to learn, but I think we've got a much better idea of what that looks like. We've been able to become very structured in our onboarding, in our training, in what people do. In day 1, they do this, day 2, they do that, day 3, they're doing this, day 4, they're on the phones. We give them old data to work with, so it doesn't matter if they mess it up. We're much more able to do that, but that's taken a long time to get right. And we just had to be willing to make mistakes and to go through that process of, if somebody, if you're in giving part of your business to anybody to operate, and this happens when you employ any staff, so you might be employing technical staff to do accountancy, at some point you have to let them fail. You have to let them make their own mistakes and then just deal with the consequence of that mistake. It's easy to do that as an accountant in accountancy, because you know exactly how to fix that. If someone's done something wrong, you know how to fix that. You know how to speak to that client to make that right. You know how to sort that out. If sales isn't your wheelhouse and you don't know how to do that in that part of your business, it becomes very difficult to do. And that's why it's scary. So we just had to be willing to really learn that. I've learned so much in the last 18 months. We just had to be willing to learn and have an open mind and not sweat the small stuff.
Love that. Don't sweat the small stuff. That should be on a Christmas card. That should be on a Christmas card. Love that one. Absolutely. Let's take a break. We're going to go to a quick poll. I'm going to launch one for all of our participants. This will be coming up for you on screen just now. So we want to understand a little bit more about the audience that we have in the room. 4 options. Choose the relevant one. Leave it a couple of seconds or so, and then we'll see what we've got from a mix of people in the room. Just having a quick look here at a Q&A that's come through. The wonderful Jonathan Gaunt has decided to say hello. Jonathan,
hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate it. If there are any other questions, please keep them coming in the Q&A section of the webinar, and we'll do our best to address them all for you live today. But Jonathan, consider your remark answered. Right, so going through onto the poll, we'll end it there. Final votes coming in. There's our results as we've got on screen for, well, I can see them, you can see them. Unfortunately, Lucy can't. Lucy, 25% of our audience in the room today represents a new practice who's just starting and is looking to learn more about selling services. 25% are existing practices. 33% are vendors looking to learn more about the inner workings of accountancy and better understand accountants like you, Lucy. So expect a lot of prospects in contact coming after this. And there has been 17% are here for another reason, something else. Please do add that into the chat, and we will do our best to make sure we can address as we go through. Awesome. Lucy, going back to a couple of discussion points that we've had already, right? One of those big things is, do I do it in-house? Do I do it as a resource solution? Obviously, various companies are able to support that for accountants that need it, right? Addressing the elephant in the room, and I want to be direct on this. I founded R.E.P.R.E.S.E.N.T with my business partner and the other 11 that come when we go into a group from the 1st of March 2024. Where it comes to commercial, I do not want an accountancy firm or business to be clients of ours from a commercial aspect indefinitely. I ultimately want to proof of concept, and that kind of proof of concept of which you did with Mazuma, right? Working with R.E.P.R.E.S.E.N.T is not just the only option for a firm out there. They might choose to start it themselves in-house, as you have done so with Mazuma starting off with. Tell me a little bit about that first role, how that looks like, how that builds and scales in time. What is the strategy that you've had for that?
Yeah, so yeah, it's the in-out option, isn't it? I'm always a big believer that if you think that you have, for any bit of it, but I'm going to use the term addressable market, if you think the addressable market is big enough, and you think that you have an offering that could reach that market and would be well received by that market, but you have no idea how to actually do that yourself in-house, if you don't have the skills and expertise to do it, and this is true of everything, not just sales, you should definitely get somebody external to do it. You can learn things to a certain extent. You can test and trial if you've got the time to do it. But honestly, if you're running your own firms, you're just starting up, do you have time? I'd also say as well that it provides you a benchmark of expectation if you have somebody external do it. If you've never done it before, your expectations of what is and isn't possible might be way too low or way too high. Somebody who's got experience in that, if you ask me now about if I bring in X number of leads, how many can convert from different sources, I could tell you because I've got loads of data to support that. But I didn't have that a few years ago. So my expectations on that are just gut feel. And yeah, gut feel's great, but let's back it up with some data. And a quick way of getting data is having people who've been and done it before, who understand it and who can advise. There's a reason people hire you, an accountant, as their trusted advisors, because you have the information, resources, and knowledge that they don't. Accountants are sometimes not great at taking that and applying it for themselves in business. I've seen people who be, using external source for their website, who should be using it for marketing, who should be using it for sales, and are not, because they kind of think, oh, well, that's quite a lot of money. I could just do it myself. And the question you have to ask yourself there is, do you have the skills and resource to adequately do it yourself and know if it truly would or wouldn't work? So is the point of failure you or not? If you don't have enough experience to test whether something is going to work, that's not a good test. To be really sciencey about it, if the limiting factor is you, then how do you know if a campaign would have worked if you'd have got the right person to do it? You screwed it up because you don't, not on purpose, but because you don't have the experience. And then you'd be really inclined in the future to go, the classic I hear all the time, like, oh, I've tried that and it doesn't work. And you need to have appropriate budgets. You need to have appropriate expectation management. You need to be very clear on what good looks like. Like, if I bring in X leads, how many of those are going to convert into sales? How long are those clients going to stay with us? What sort of money are they going to cost me? Because obviously, if it's costing you £500 to bring in a client and you only make £200 out of them, it's not really worth doing it. So if you don't know all that stuff, you need to work with somebody who's going to help you get to that. If you do know all that stuff, then maybe you've got enough resource to be able to work it out in-house, do some testing, measuring, and iterations. But for me, that's where the divide is. If you don't know all that stuff, and if a load of the words I've just said there make you go, oh, I don't know what that means, probably don't try and really go for it in-house. Seek some advice externally. Even if you don't engage with somebody, seek some advice and get someone to help you.
I love that. For me, this is you speaking my language here, Lucy, right? Your customer acquisition cost, or your CAC, versus your CLV, or customer lifetime value. Really, if you look at professional services as benchmarking, as you said, what does success look like, right? Your average CAC, or customer acquisition cost, versus CLV, client lifetime value, is roughly a third. So a third of what that client is going to bring to your business for whatever period of time that is going to be spent on acquiring that client. Also, quite shockingly, I'd read recently that the average closed win ratio, so between proposal and contract for professional services, is around 30%. So from a KPI perspective, we have an adherence with all of our sales teams, all of our commercial boffins, on a minimum of a 60% close win ratio for clients. Mine previously, given my track record and decade worth of experience, particularly over the last 3 years, is a 73% close win ratio when it comes to professional services. That is accountancy sales. That is also service delivery sales, right? So you need to know what the industry average is, but don't set your standards on that industry average. Look towards beating that. Look towards being in a much more significantly better position than that. I think right size, as you said, is really, really important, Lucy. What I want to do, though, I want to go back to another poll. I'm in the mood today just to pop all these polls off. I want to understand a little bit more from the audience. What is stopping you from selling? I know, Lucy, you made a couple of points around knowledge, experience. You also talked about the time in order to be able to do so. You would think that I knew you were going to say that in advance, because those are pretty much the answers that I've put together in the poll that, again, you can't see. But we've got some votes coming in now. So everyone, let's have a little check on here. So far, a significant percentage of the vote is actually coming in concerns about appearing to be salesy or pushy. Wow. So a couple of more seconds and I will close that vote. And that there. And I'll share results for everyone on screen. So Lucy, 18% of everyone that's voted is lacking in sales training or knowledge. Another 18% is finding difficulty in identifying the right target market. 55% of the vote have concerns about appearing too salesy or pushy. 9% don't have the time. So it seems like people have the time. They are concerned about being salesy or pushy. And a few in the audience need to have more or better knowledge to be able to do so. I guess, Lucy, from your position, firstly, how do you sell, or how do your team sell, so they don't come across as salesy or pushy?
They are pushy. They are salesy. It's their job. There's nothing wrong with that. Look, we don't do outbound dialing in terms of cold data, but people come to our website, they've inquired, they've GDPR'd, and granted, our model is probably very different to a lot of other people's. We're much more kind of subscription style, kind of high volumes. The number of leads and conversion rates I could talk about in my business would probably horrify lots of people. But people have come to us, they've inquired. That's fair game. Yeah. Ring them, email them, ring them and email them, then ring them and email them, and try and get them an appointment, ring them and email them. We have multiple touch points. You can't just respond to an inquiry with an email and hope that person is going to get back in touch with you. Sales is there, and this is where I go back to this idea of sales kind of being a bit of a dirty word, and people. And it's there because we've all had poor sales experiences. We've all had experiences where we feel like it's been too pushy, or we don't like it, or we feel like we've been harassed. But all of us have also bought lots of things, right? We've all bought loads of stuff. We've all bought services. We've all bought things for our house. We've all gone to places to buy furniture or holidays or whatever else. You've all bought things, so therefore, in some way, shape, or form, you have been sold. So remember that at some point in the sales cycle, and it is a sales cycle, at some point you had enough contacts with a company, either they were recommended or you had enough contacts with them for you to go, yes, I would like to engage with this service. And if you look honestly at how many points of contact you've had with that company, it's probably way more than you think. You might have seen an ad online, you might have stalked around the internet a bit, maybe you filled out a form, maybe you had some email newsletters, maybe somebody called you, maybe you booked in a call. You'll have had quite a lot of points for that. It takes a lot for people to say yes to something. And a lot of the time, we get put off by the first, it's not a no, it's a perceived no. So, and then we go, oh, I'm not going to push. But you can build in cadences, you can build in value, you can build in added value stuff that keeps you front of mind. Sales is about keeping you front of mind. Sales is about being the obvious option when they do make the decision to buy, when they're in that hot buying moment, they're like, yes, I want my problem solved, that you are there with your unique product or service to be able to answer that need. So you don't want to let stuff go cold. I think again, that kind of word salesy, we have this kind of feeling that we think it's a bad thing, but no business grows without sales. Even if you haven't hired a sales team, you are doing sales. You are meeting clients. You're pitching your product or service. It's good enough. It's hitting whatever tick boxes they want for them to say yes to it. You've completed the sales cycle. That is sales. Now, if you can just expedite that, so maybe it took you, what I'm all about is, can I get there quicker? A to B quicker, my whole thing. Maybe that took you 5 emails and 2 meetings. Could you have done it in 4 emails and 1 meeting? Could you have done it with a phone meeting? Could you have done it more efficiently? We let this idea that we're in this consultative sell place take up a lot of space in minds, and actually, can you get there more quickly? And I think, and that's true of everything, why spend more time than you need to doing anything in your business? It is then just an absolute waste of time, and it's just coming straight off your bottom line ultimately. So yeah, this idea of being salesy, I understand it. No one wants to feel like they're being, you knocked on the front door and someone trying to, you force sell you double glazing or something. But sales is a really broad scope, and there will be a style. There's all kinds of different styles of selling. There will be a style that will suit the way that works your business. You need to find that style and then implement it, iterate it, test it, measure it, and so on, and stick at it. I wouldn't be too worried about being salesy. Also, one person's salesy is another person's. Why aren't they? What annoys me is when I want to buy something and I'm giving all the buying signals, I'm going, yes, let's go ahead, please. And then they're going, okay, well, let's book in another meeting. No, I want to buy the thing. Learn to read those buying signals, because I think sometimes we miss them. If people seem keen, they're giving you the buying signals, go ahead and ask for the business, ask for it. And yeah, it's uncomfortable. And if you're really uncomfortable with it, that's where getting someone else in to do it works. But I wouldn't worry too much about this idea of being pushy. I think there's a lot further everyone can go down the line before you're actually being pushy. It's probably a bit of a internal bias there.
Yeah, no, I get it completely. I think from that of a salesperson, because I am one. I've been one for over a decade now, so I'll probably come in on a couple of points here. Let's define what salesy is. For me, a good sale is you are informing and you are empowering your prospective client to buy something from you. If you're an accountant or bookkeeper or financial services provider on the call, this response, if you would, this is applicable to you. Everything that you do, every single one of your services, either saves a client money, helps them generate more money, helps them be compliant in line with law and legislation, or it provides strategic advice, analysis, and I guess analytics of things like data. allowing that client to be able to make better informed decisions on their business, whether that's financially or operationally, in order for your client to either win more business and increase profits or reduce costs. Everything that you do provides value to a client. If you know that, you understand that, and you can deliver on the expectations that you've set, all you need to do is not be salesy. Yes, follow up, follow up, follow up until you get a no, right? Absolutely. Don't act on a perceived no or because somebody's not got back to you, because we're all busy people. But the easiest thing to do is quantify a client's return on investment in advance of giving them a price. You do that on three main areas. That's the way that we do it when we act for clients. It's the way that I've done it and have been very, very successful over my career in sales. You look at financial return on investment, operational return on investment, and personal return on investment. Quantify the return on investment on those three areas for your prospective client with information and detail that they have shared with you, not that you've imagined, plucked out of thin air, or as Lucy said, conjured up like something out of a fantasy film. Give them the insights based upon what they've told you, quantify that ROI, and I can promise you, if you do it properly with the client's information, they will come back to you to buy your service as opposed to you asking if they want to buy it. Also, as Lucy said, keep it short and simple. If they want a contract, send them a contract. Don't bother with a proposal. Don't bother with an email. I'm going to send you a contract, Lucy. This is what you want from me. Is that right? Yes, it is. Awesome. Thank you so much. Great points here, Lucy. This is absolutely awesome. We've got 4 minutes left. So let's go through a little bit of Q&A as to what we've got through so far. And then there'll be a couple of closing remarks. And I want to make sure for everyone that's taken the time to attend today, there is more value provided outside of our 30-minute window. So a little bit more detail coming through. Any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A. So a couple of points here. Should accountants outsource sales, just not as financial savvy business owners should outsource the accounting function? Yes, I feel like that has been answered. Lucy, anything to add?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If it's not your wheelhouse and someone else can do better, why would you try doing it poorly?
Epic. Sid, keep the questions coming. Wow, so much coming through from you. What's an acceptable cost per acquisition for a typical startup client? Lucy, do you want to come on that one?
That I'm going to revert to your metrics there. This entirely depends on how much that client is worth to you. If that client is worth £100,000 a year to you and signs into a 5-year contract, you will probably be spending, for that sort of level of contract, you'd be spending a decent amount of money on that sales cycle. If somebody's worth £200 a year to you, I wouldn't be wanting to spend more than, like you said, 30% of that value upfront in terms of the customer acquisition cost. So that's a very individual question. It's going to change, as your business becomes more sophisticated in terms of its sales offering, and it's also something that the efficacy of your sales team impact. If they're really good closers and they're converting at they're closing at good conversion rates, your CAC may well reduce. There are a lot of moving parts in that question. It's not a simple question, but if you're curious about it, you want to start tracking data now. Start adding up stuff and start figuring it out, because eventually in a year's time, you'll have some really good data and then you can start benchmarking for yourself.
Love that, Lucy. Absolutely love that. One final point from Sid here. I think a little bit of an observation as opposed to a question, but as a keen rugby fan myself, I absolutely want to say this point. Believe in the right time to call. No is often. No, it's not a particularly good time. Don't call a rugby fan whilst the Six Nations is on. So, I mean,
yeah,
bravo,
absolutely.
Sid. Absolutely, bravo. Other questions that we had come through, Lucy, just to finish on these before the webinar today. People were really keen to get these in. Ooh. How can I be better at selling professional services / accounting to business owners?
So coming at this from if you are someone with technical knowledge, I'd say learn how to gatekeep. Don't give them the farm. Don't give them stuff for free. When they start asking technical questions, learn and come up with things and go, well, obviously, this is why you could really do with our services, because you're asking these sorts of questions and this is the sort of advice that we charge for. Would you like to be a client? Have that advice. Learn to gatekeep. We want to help clients, and we tend to give away too much during sales, which means we lose sales because of it. So where your freemium stops, and then learn how to close them in from there.
I love that. There's two other questions I'll answer with one statement. The questions are how to get clients offshore in outsourcing business. I think that's probably an outsourcing provider looking for knowledge on a couple of things, but also how do we tell more accountants about our platform that pretty much guarantees ROI for them? I want to cover both of those questions with one statement. I've already kind of mentioned it. ROI, the perceived ROI, do not make ROI a presumption, make it a definite. Quantify the clients that you've got that love your service. Get them collaborating with you from a market perspective. Do a webinar, do a case study, have testimonials for your website. Use those for social media. Put that out there to your specific audience, right? I spent a bit of time recently working with, or the last company I represented, providing outsourcing and offshoring solutions, right? It's a great market. Accountants absolutely love it. It is a huge time saver and a very, very big benefit. You need to make sure that the credibility around your USPs and your return on investment is at the forefront of every single accountant you can possibly reach out to. Really simple. Quantify the ROI, make sure your target audience is available, and as Lucy said it a little bit earlier on, keep on following up. So important to get done. Lucy, I'm going to close up with a couple of remarks. Any closing remarks from you?
No, just enjoy gathering the data on what works for you as a business. That's the fun bit. It's not necessarily the destination always. It's the journey and understanding your business. It's a real opportunity to understand your business sales cycle in more depth if you start tracking things. So track everything you can.
Fantastic. Lucy, thank you so much. For everyone, I said a little bit earlier, I wanted to leave you with more value than was possible in the remaining 30 minutes. If you have any additional queries, questions, or concerns, please do email myself and the team on our email address for the business, which is hello@represent.global. Once more, that's hello@represent.global. When you close off this webinar, you will be presented with a questionnaire. Yes, my ability or opportunity to be able to give you more value. Number one, we would love to be able to provide you with further assets, helping you and supporting you when it comes to sales enablement, and stuff that you can use in your process when running business. Anyone that's joined this webinar today, if you would like to hear more from myself or any other member of Team Represent, we'd love to be able to get in contact. Please do let us know. For everyone that's joined, I'm more than happy to give you a free of charge 20-minute session evaluating what you're doing and what you're not doing. That'll be one-on-one, completely free of charge, and my way of saying a massive thank you for joining us here today. Finally, 2 minutes over time, but listen, 2 minutes is nothing. Lucy, I just want to say a massive thank you again. Greatly appreciated. And yeah, everyone, look forward to catching up with you soon.